up, everyone? I'm Ethan. I'm here with my boy Garrett, and welcome back to Hive Sports. Today, we have another video for you all where we're using that 10-year historical ADP data to provide some actionable dynasty insights. And after a few of our other videos we've put out, a lot of our viewers have been hounding us, right, G, to provide some QB data. I know quarterbacks...
Where's that QB data at? We need those hit rates.
Yep. So today is finally that day. So our video today is going to focus on the comparison between quarterbacks with an ADP of the late first round compared to the second round. Some pretty interesting data we have today. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it, G, huh? You want to run some of those numbers?
Yeah, I mean, just to preface it a little bit, we're talking Superflex dynasty leagues, right? So quarterback is the king. And, you know, if you can get a quarterback who's young, who has proven it at the NFL level, and they have 5-10 more years to play and give you, you know, productive fantasy seasons, that's about as good as it gets, right? That's about as high of a ceiling pick as you can get from a Superflex rookie dynasty draft. So we're going to dig into the numbers. We're going to show you what are the pockets that you want to target, what are the pockets you want to maybe avoid. And yeah, I'm looking forward to jumping in.
So today's numbers, we're going to focus on the late first and then that second round comparison. And we're really going to focus in and hone in on that 3+ hit season rate. And the reason we're focused on that 3+ hit season is we're talking about quarterbacks that are going to be real team changers. You know, like Garrett mentioned, you know, guys that are going to have multiple hit seasons for you and are really going to make your team go from one level to the next. So we thought it was important to kind of compare, you know, what percentages of quarterbacks in that late first have 3+ hit seasons versus that second round where that value drop off, you know, before the draft, you know, where you can maybe trade that late first for some good value and still have a second round pick to potentially steal a quarterback.
Just to build off of that 3+ argument, I think so much of this data is it comes down to how you define a hit, right? What's a success? And it could even be, I've heard some good arguments that guys who haven't actually had hit seasons yet still are hits for the individual owner because they can then trade them, or they have good trade value at times. You know, think Tank Dell, Jaden Reed, guys who haven't actually performed, but they've held good value at times, right? So that's kind of why it's tricky, right? You gotta pick the right indicators. But just look at a guy like Blake Bortles, right? He had 2+ hit seasons. He had 2 hit seasons. And then he was like nowhere to be found. So there's plenty of quarterbacks who they'll have one or two.
Let's stop clowning on my Jaguars, huh?
Yeah, well, Daniel Jones is another guy, right? Where he had one hit season, then, you know, didn't do anything until this year. So there's a lot of guys that'll have 1 or 2 good seasons, but they won't be consistent producers for you, you know, 5-10 years down the road. So we really want to hone in on those Patrick Mahomes types who, you know, really hard to move, really hard to acquire, but the only place you can really get guys like that is the rookie draft, unless you're willing to pay an arm and a leg down 100%. The road.
Yeah, and so let's dive into the numbers then, Garrett. And so if we're looking at our 107 to 112 range, right, 20% of those quarterbacks that have an ADP in that range go on to have 3+ hit seasons. And 20%, right, for the end of first, okay. But if you go just the second round, similar 3+ hit seasons, you have 17% for that 201 to 206, and then 20% also for that 207 to 212 range, with a similar sample size for both that end of first and that second round. So what stands out to you, Garrett, about those numbers? I mean, they're close, they're identical, right? And so
yeah, I think it's obviously surprising, right? Because you think first round, there's got to be a drop off after the first round when it comes to a scarce position like quarterback, right? But the data doesn't say that. The data, in fact, says the opposite, that if you need a quarterback, you miss out on those elite guys in the first half of the first round. You know, it's not always the best idea to reach or trade up into that late first. Rather, especially if it's a deep quarterback class, like some of these years, you want to be patient and you want to wait for the guy to fall to you in the second round.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, right? Because likely there's going to be an elite quarterback that is going to be a top 6 pick, right? And if you don't have a, 101 to 106 draft spot, you're likely going to miss on him. And so you're thinking, oh, let me take the second, third, maybe quarterback in this draft in the late first. Maybe he has the ADP that kind of falls in that range. And the data shows that you can wait even longer to the second round if you wanted to. And at that point, you can, maybe if you're in the middle of the draft, right, and you're in a slow draft and the quarterback you wanted got picked, right before you, and you're like, well, shoot, you know, this is the guy that I wanted in my end of first round draft pick. Well, you don't need to reach on a guy like Garrett is saying, right? You can hold, there's still some value in that late first round pick that now you can trade back, still get a quarterback that has the same shot at getting the 3+ hit seasons for you in the second round, and get a little bit of extra spice on top for the value, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, even looking at this year's quarterback class, I know we have Jackson Dart at the end of the first in our ADP based on DLF, but I was in plenty of drafts myself, sleeper, FFPC, etc., where Jackson Dart fell to the second round. I got him at 205 in one draft. I got him at 211 in another draft. So especially in Superflex, if for whatever reason there's a guy with first round NFL draft capital who you like the talent profile and they're falling to the second round, it's not a trap. Just take the value and thank us later.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? Let's look at some of the big dogs, the guys that have really put out some large hit seasons, right? And so looking at our quarterback data, Garrett, where we have the most hit seasons since 2014, I mean, we have one quarterback that falls in that 106 to 112 range, right? That's Lamar, who has four hit seasons. But there's two guys that fall in that second round, Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. So I mean, even guys that are getting 4 or 5 hit seasons, like that trend follows, right? And so, don't feel like just because you have a late first pick and there's a quarterback that's kind of sitting there, don't feel like you have to take him, because there's still value to be had later on.
Yeah, and Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, man, that's not like we're talking mid-tier quarterbacks. These are two of the top five, fantasy quarterbacks over the last 5 years, right? Like these guys are fantasy difference makers, dual threats. And for whatever reason, some of these guys fall, right? If they're a runner coming out of college, maybe they're not as polished as a passer.
Mm-hmm.
Think Lamar, think Hurts, think Josh Allen. They need a little bit of development. Maybe they're not being drafted top 10 in the NFL draft. Say they fall in your rookie draft. That's where you gotta take a chance on these guys, right? Because it's all about Konami code, dual threat upside when you're talking about fantasy football, especially.
100%. And like always, when we talk about this data, don't just rely on this data, please, right? Use your own talent scouting and, kind of think about what your team really needs. And, the data is percentages, right? So there's always a chance that there's going to be a guy that falls in that 107 to 112 range that is a stud, right? I.e. Lamar, like we talked about. But
Justin Herbert. Yeah, there's always
exactly.
outliers, right?
But still, right, in that tiebreaker situation, or in the situation where the guy you really wanted got taken right before you, and you're like, well, shoot, do I need to take this guy that I maybe wasn't as high on, or should I just trade back or take a different position? Right? That's the situation when you really want to think about, okay, let me use this data to make an informed decision.
Yeah, and quarterbacks, I mean, it's always going to be the hardest position to evaluate. So maybe you want to lean on the numbers a little bit more to guide you compared to other positions. Because I don't know about you, E, but I've had my fair share of bust quarterbacks over the years. I'm talking Trey Lance. I even had a little bit of hopium on guys like Matt Corral coming out of college. So it's always like it's hard to say for sure who's going to translate from the college to the NFL level. There's plenty of
100%.
guys that look great in college and they just for whatever reason they don't work out at the NFL level.
100%. So don't make that mistake like Garrett and take Trey Lance. And but
Don't be me.
anyways, we hope you liked this video. If you liked it, please leave a like. It helps us out a lot. Share this with your friends. Subscribe. We're trying to kind of grow this channel. We feel like we have a lot of value to provide you, especially in the dynasty context. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions. If you disagree with some of our takes or just want to give us some constructive feedback, like we take all of that because we just want to provide the best content as we can for you. So be on the lookout for our next video where we focus on more historical data. We have more bangers coming your way. And in the meantime, good luck with the season.